Coming up, a Lakota man finds expression through rap and sound design. Plus, a Pueblo nation in New Mexico uses technology to solve supply chain issues. And a Native broadcaster provides basketball commentary. I'm Aaliyah Chavez. Join us for those interviews plus headlines from the ICT Newscast.
This program is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.
Arizona State University welcomes 3,500 Indigenous students from Arizona and across the nation. It serves one of the largest populations of Indigenous students among U.S. colleges and universities. We created a sense of place for tribal nations to create futures of their own making through community outreach and research, taught by world-class Indigenous faculty where they see a reflection of themselves and their experiences. Find community at ASU.
Thank you for joining us. We start today in California, where new efforts are underway to return missing and murdered Indigenous victims to their families. Tribal leaders, law enforcement, and lawmakers held a Feather Alert roundtable last week in Redwood Valley, California. The Special Alert is a statewide system used to better connect Indigenous and non-Native law enforcement agencies. So far, tribal leaders are finding that this is needed. In April, the Round Valley Indian tribes, whose leaders attended the meeting, declared a state of emergency after 2 of its citizens were found murdered. The legislation to make this possible was authored by California Assemblymember James Ramos, who says he will continue this series of roundtables across various regions in the state. California, which has over 100 federally recognized tribes, is also among the states with the highest number of MMIR victims. In Nevada, there is another setback for the efforts to stop a lithium mine that tribes say will harm the environment and destroy a sacred site. ICT's Stuart Huntington reports.
The Ninth U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals has ruled against tribes and environmentalists seeking to overturn federal approval of the Thacker Pass project along the Nevada-Oregon border. The suit argued that the government's environmental impact assessment effort was flawed. It was rejected earlier this year by a district court judge. The appeals court agreed, boosting the prospects that Lithium Nevada Corp's project can proceed. The Biden administration says the mine will help produce lithium needed for electric vehicle batteries and a greener economy. The proposed site has been the scene of ongoing protests. Gary McKinney, a Shoshone-Paiute citizen, has been active in opposition to the mine.
Out here in Nevada, it's like they want to turn this place into a wasteland. You know, they see desert and they want to turn it into a wasteland. But you know, it's there where our people walked through. It's there where our people camped, and you know, our ancestors had daily routines on those lands.
A separate federal suit filed against the mine contends it would destroy a sacred site. It too was rejected at the district court level. The appeal of that suit is pending with the Ninth Circuit. Will Falk, one of the attorneys for the tribes in the suit, says he hopes the appellate judges will support their argument.
The Bureau of Land Management completely failed to analyze the way the Thacker Pass lithium mine would harm land sacred to Paiute and Shoshone people, including the site of a September 12th, 1865 massacre that was perpetrated by the federal government. So we are hopeful that the Ninth Circuit will see this case for what it is. The federal government massacred Paiute people in Thacker Pass in 1865. Now they're allowing a mine to come in and destroy the evidence of that massacre.
In Bay Lake, Minnesota, Stuart Huntington, ICT News.
The groups opposing the mine said they haven't decided if they would appeal the recent ruling. The lithium company said in a statement they hoped the mine would be operational by this summer. In South Dakota, a civil rights panel is demanding action to boost Native voter participation. That's in a state where Natives couldn't vote until 1951. The state's advisory committee to the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights last week released its Voting Rights and Access report. It found that Native voters face serious hurdles to voting, including a sense of distrust and intimidation, as well as having to travel vast distances to the polls. In 2020, the voter turnout in Oglala County was 41% compared to 74% among other groups. Along with other solutions, the report calls for funding to support access for Indigenous voters and allowing Indian Health Service clinics to be voter registration sites. Speaking for himself, Charles Aberesk, Rosebud Sioux Supreme Court Chief Justice and Advisory Committee member, told ICT he is shocked at the state's record.
When you read the background in the report, and it's very factual and historical, it almost takes one's breath away, really how slow our state has been in ensuring full voting rights and, more importantly, really voter participation in voting in South Dakota.
Well, the film Prey has been nominated multiple times for a prestigious TV award. The science fiction Predator prequel was nominated for 6 Emmy Awards, including Outstanding Television Movie in 2023. Starring Fort Peck citizen Amber Midthunder, the film is produced by Comanche citizen Jane Myers and was directed by Dan Trachtenberg. It made history when it was released as the first film to be produced entirely in the Comanche language. Since the film's release last summer, it has earned numerous award nominations and recognitions, including Best Streamed Television Movie by the Producers Guild of America. For this year's 75th Emmys, Prey was also nominated in categories including writing, directing, editing, music composition, and sound editing. The official winners will be announced at the Emmy Awards in September. And those are the headlines for the ICT Newscast. He's a storyteller standing on the shoulders of his ancestors and with a mission. The stories of Bazille Ducheneaux are what contemporaries would call rap, but in his work and life, he redefines what it means to be Lakota. Talon joins me now virtually to share his latest work. Hello there, and welcome to the ICT Newscast.
Hi, Leah. Thank you very much for having me.
Let's jump right in here. Tell us about your latest work.
My latest work, Dopa, is a 4-track project that I recorded back out in Philadelphia, actually, in a studio that was the first studio I went to when I was living in Philadelphia. I had just graduated. I left the reservation to go to the University of Pennsylvania, and I studied psychology, but music has always been that driving factor and that kind of the thorn in everybody's side as I was going on this education journey and trying to create a stable life for myself. So now that I've gone through everything that I've gone through and I'm still going, I wanted to go back to Philadelphia and create 4 songs that I talk a lot about struggle and hardship, but I wanted these 4 songs to be like the buffalo standing in the storm, facing everything and standing tall coming out of it. So Dopa, which is 4 in Lakota or Dakota, is the title, but I changed it to a D. Just to give it that ode to hip hop feel too, because I feel like those perspectives marry, the resistance, or rather the resilience through oppression.
You mentioned those 4 songs. Tell us the names of them and what exactly you address in those songs.
Yeah, so the first song is kind of, it's almost like ironic. It's called Big Chief Nobody. And I know in hip hop and rap, it's often the pressure to, be boisterous, to be overly confident, and to be really, driven via the self. But for me, my work has always been in, whether it's in music or outside of music, coming with the approach of Daku Shni Mie, I'm nobody. Everybody else, if I go around the world with the Dakota frame set of I'm nobody and everybody else's thing, it just means more. I'm operating off of not myself, but how I want to represent myself in the context of my land, my people, my family, my friends, my history, and my future. So Big Chief Nobody is, in a sense, owning my power, but acknowledging that that power is anybody's power, that power is anybody can be Big Chief Nobody. Anybody can listen to that song and understand that even if they aren't originally from the Black Hills or from our rivers, that they have a land and rivers that they were taken from, or that is currently being occupied, or that they're re-establishing a relationship to. So that song just calls to that.
I understand that you're fresh off of an event involving Native youth on your tribal lands. Tell us about that event.
Yeah, I was over at the Red Can Paint Jam where I got to perform these songs and really everything there for the first time in Eagle Butte, South Dakota. I'm originally from Cheyenne River, but also Crow Creek. And while I've performed in Crow Creek and have put on events there, Eagle Butte has really been a place, to be honest, a great place of trauma for me. Me and my family went through a lot there, and I think there was some resistances even just because of my, trauma memory that really kept me from fully pushing myself there. But before I lost my brother last year, he encouraged me to come back more, to create better memories, to use those old memories as a reason to do something different and that won't just affect me, but everybody else there. So to get the opportunity to be invited to Red Can just meant so much. It was like a homecoming. And I got more reception there, and it just felt so much better than even the prestigious places I've played at. It just meant so much more. And I even got to perform in front of I didn't know someone was going to make a mural of me. But, to get that kind of love in a place that originally before was so scared of and hesitant to hip hop with good reason. There was a lot going on when I was growing up, but to see things shift and to see openness to creativity that I feel like all of our communities need and all of our youth need, it was not just validating for me, but I saw people that I grew up with in that crowd and felt the spirits of those I did grow up with there too. And it was healing.
Speaking about community, ICT recently reported on the grand opening of the Oglala Lakota Art Space. You're actually the program manager for its music program. It must be so exciting to be on the ground floor of that new project.
Oh man, it's very gratifying at every step, through even the obstacles to go through as, from the programmatic planning standpoint. It's all worth it because, I remember those days of walking through Eagle Butte and Crow Creek, and the lights are, broken out, and there's stuff on the ground, and there's things going on that you see as a youth with nowhere to go except the gas station. I had always thought of like, man, if there was a local place where we could just go and make music and, say 2 people collab this day, 4 people collab that day, 1 person goes in solo the next, it would just be nice to have a regular place to go to. And while we aren't necessarily at that stage yet, we're very well on a good track to do that. And so and with that, that's access to studio time, that's access to performance dates, that's access to collaboration and connection in a way that's also looked after by a program that cares about the safety of the youth and people that are going in there, as well as the freedom of their creativity. So I'm very grateful for that, to be a part of that.
Well, Talon Ducheneaux, thank you so much.
It's all things basketball in Phoenix these days. The Native American Basketball Invitational is in full swing. This past weekend, the champion was crowned. We're recording this on Friday, so we don't know the outcome. However, we do know who will be telling you. Joining us is sports journalist Tyler Jones. He'll be calling the semifinals on Saturday and the championships on Sunday. Welcome to Phoenix, Tyler.
Great to be here, Mark. Always a pleasure anytime getting to chat with Indian Country today, and great to see the success that you guys are having with this organization. And always a pleasure to come out in Phoenix and be a part of NABI for my 3rd straight year, and should be an outstanding event.
First, tell us about play-by-play. How do you approach the job, and what's so important to do that?
Play-by-play is a very unique element when it comes to sports broadcasting, and it's unlike anything else I do. I've done everything from radio hosting to TV anchoring to sideline reporting, whatever it may be. But play-by-play is so unique because you're telling the story as it happens in real time. And the audience isn't there to see you. They might be tuning in to see your radio show, your podcast, or something like that. But when it comes to play-by-play, they're there for the action. And so you don't want to stand in the way of the game. You want to add to it. And so bringing that storytelling while also bringing some excitement is what it's all about. Now, I love doing it because there's no script. You're on the fly and making the most of it and having a good time while doing it as well.
I hesitate to bring this up because it goes back so far, but I actually began my career doing play-by-play.
Really?
In Fort Hall, Idaho, many, many years ago.
That's great.
How did you get interested in this?
Man, crazy story. I'm 27 years old now, and I started working in media when I was around 15 years old. So 12 years now. Started my own podcast, and from there was calling games at my high school, Broken Arrow in Oklahoma. They hired me while I was a student to call games a few days a week. That was my job in school. While other kids were maybe working at the car wash or something, I was getting paid by the high school to call games. So that was great, and that turned into me going to college in Lawrence, first at Haskell, then University of Kansas, and working in radio up there and doing play-by-play. And fast forward a couple stops along the way in Omaha and now in Dallas, talking the NFL every day in my day job. Here we are, and it's been an incredible journey and met a lot of great folks along the way, and certainly some more stuff to come. And I feel like I've been doing this a while, but there's still a whole lot more I want to accomplish too.
Let's pull back the lens a little bit and talk about NABI and what this tournament represents.
NABI is a terrific event, and I look at what Jean Marie has done with bringing so many teams and tribes right to the forefront and putting them on a platform that you're not going to get anywhere else. The championship games we're having at the Footprint Center, which not too long ago hosted the NBA Finals. That's a big deal for these players that come from these tribal communities that wonder if they're gonna make it each day. How am I gonna be seen? How am I gonna get recruited or get the chance to show my talents when scouts and coaches are not showing up when they're not around? And NABI presents that opportunity for these players to have that platform, to have that stage. And, our broadcast plays a critical role, I think, when we're talking about this broadcast being statewide in Arizona, then all around the world online as well. It's great. It brings a voice to those that necessarily might not have that voice. And so my job as the play-by-play guy is to be that storyteller, to let the action speak for itself in a sense and get these players this platform to not only showcase their talents, but also be featured where they can have that stage to show out where they might not have it otherwise.
Speaking of the stage, tell us about some of the talent with the teams and individuals you're looking at this.
It's incredible. I mean, we've seen over the last few years some remarkable players come through this tournament. And, I look at it, it's so unique to me of where we have these teams coming from all over. You're talking over 150 tribes represented, teams from all across the country and even beyond just the U.S. A team from New Zealand is involved this year. As long as you have tribal connections, then you can take part in this. And so to me, that's a big deal of what NABI's done to reach its footprint to be the event for Indian country to come back each and every year and see that the brand is growing and where it's expanded to. And there's some exciting stuff in the works in the future that we'll be bringing as well to continue to grow that brand and reach more people. And it's great to be a part of that.
Well, tell us about your podcasts and where we can find them.
Yeah, so I've been doing the same podcast. We mentioned, started that podcast when I was 15 years old. I still do that show to this day, the Jones Report, out each and every week wherever you listen to podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts as well. And, talking not only sports, but a little pop culture. I like to have fun with it. Can't take myself too seriously. I think that people, when they come to the sports world, you want to not just sit there and find information, but you want to be entertained and have a good time. And if I can do that, then I'm doing my job. I always look at of accomplishing two things with every show I do, to entertain and inform.
Great stories. Thank you so much, Tyler Jones.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate you having me.
Supply chain issues have disrupted projects all over the world, but a Pueblo nation in New Mexico is closing that gap with new technology. Kewa Pueblo is using 3D printers to create parts needed to build energy and internet infrastructure. The editor of the news organization Source New Mexico, Shaun Griswold, joins us now virtually to explain. Welcome, Shaun.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Your colleague Megan Gleason wrote this story about 3D printing in Kewa Pueblo. Tell us about it.
Yes, as you mentioned, supply chain issues are disrupting a lot of the millions of dollars coming to tribal communities to help create broadband infrastructure projects basically from the ground up. And so what Kewa Pueblo decided to do is that they used some of the money that they received from that was passed by Congress under the Infrastructure Act under the Biden administration's priorities. They took some of that money that they received, over $12 million, and contracted with a 3D printer that is helping them build out some of the infrastructure needs that are necessary, some of the wire cables, something that they're actually trying to do that's part of the larger project is to build a solar farm it's intended to help power some of the technology centers that are needed to help run internet, not only for their community, but for other rural New Mexico communities that are outside of the Pueblo that they're also going to be trying to service with their own internet service provider.
Full disclosure, Shaun, this is my tribal nation. We call ourselves Kewa Pueblo, but we've also been referred to as Santo Domingo Pueblo. And our tribe is very close to Albuquerque, but still, of course, a very rural community. In your reporting and your colleagues' reporting, tell us about some of the challenges that the community is facing in getting access to broadband currently.
Yeah, and as you understand, the area is between Albuquerque and Santa Fe. It's in a bit of a valley, but also in a high mountain area. And so, historically, a lot of internet service providers, your AT&Ts, your CenturyLinks, your T-Mobiles, have always suggested that they struggle being able to meet the demands of the environmental landscape. There's too many mountains in the space in the area. It's an excuse that ultimately had led to the community not having internet, and that was highlighted, exponentially during when COVID first started. We saw the issues when it came to remote learning with schooling, when it came to telehealth, also just for anybody who had a job that required them to work from home. They couldn't do that in many of these tribal communities, including Kewa or Santo Domingo Pueblo, because there was no internet. When the pandemic started, there had to be a survey done in New Mexico trying to determine exactly how many people in rural New Mexico and tribal communities did not have internet. There was more than 35% of the state did not have internet. That number has gone down just a little bit. It's now at 25% of considered people who do not have reliable internet. Reliable internet meaning, fast speeds, abilities for people to have Zoom meetings and conversations the way that we're doing, multiple devices running in a household because you have, entire families that now need the internet. But what we're seeing with tribal communities and even with the investments from the federal infrastructure bill is that the internet is being treated like a utility. It's a necessary application that people need to be able to not only access their work, their life, their school, their health, but really anything in the world that's happening for them. And so that's why Santo Domingo Pueblo has taken it upon themselves to try and build this out from like almost a 360 approach. There are 23 tribes in New Mexico. Each tribe received millions of dollars from the Biden Infrastructure Act to build out their broadband programs. Several have already come across the supply chain issues that Kewa Pueblo is trying to work around and build out on their own. What that means with those supply chain issues, it means that your broadband projects are stalled. You're not providing adequate internet. And so that's what Kewa Santo Domingo Pueblo is trying to do and trying to avoid.
And aside from internet, it also means lack of access to cellular services. I know that for a long time when I was at my grandpa's house in the village, I would quite literally have to be bending over the sink trying to put my phone up in the air to try to get a signal. And that really affects people, you know, when you need to call for an ambulance or you need any kind of emergency services.
Oh, 100%. And I think, as you mentioned, everybody knows that one spot in the area, like whether it's the mountain or that one window in the parents' house where you can get a cell phone signal. And for a lot of people were also initially dependent on cell phone devices to be able to access the internet, but that's not a viable solution. And so by boosting broadband access, you're not only creating more connection for tribal communities to areas outside, you can also boost the infrastructure that will include cell phone services, at least that's the intent, to places that have just been generally ignored because companies found it as an economic issue that was not viable. It cost too much money to work through some of the hard dirt, to work through some of the valleys and the peaks and the mesas that exist in the natural landscapes that we live in. But because the tribes know that this is a necessity for their future growth, for not only for the tribal government leadership themselves, but also everybody who lives there, these are predominant investments, and there's money coming in that is direct investments from the federal government. So they're trying to use it appropriately. At least some of them are.
Well, Shaun Griswold from Source, New Mexico, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
And that's a slice of our Indigenous world. For all the latest, visit ictnews.org. From all of us in the newsroom, stay safe, my relatives.
This program is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.